Everything you're doing there, I have to explain to a room full of men whose first and last question is how can this be used against us?
Kangaroo.
What is that?
In 1770, Captain James Cook's ship ran aground off the coast of Australia, and he led a party into the country, and they met the Aboriginal people. One of the sailors pointed at the animals that hop around and put their babies in their pouch, and he asked what they were, and the Aborigines said, kangaroo. It wasn't until later that they learned that kangaroo means, I don't understand.
I can sell that for now.
Yeah.
And remember what happened to the Aborigines? A more advanced race nearly wiped them out.
It's a good story.
Thanks. It's not true, but it proves my point.
Welcome to Kermode Uncut. Over the weekend, you may well have gone to see Arrival, which is a terrific new science fiction movie directed by Denis Villeneuve, who made Sicario, and starring Amy Adams. It's a really good movie. I loved it. It's got very good response from critics. I think many of them will be including it in their top 10 list of the year. It's adapted from a short story by Ted Chiang. It's like a 40-page story. And the source story is really dense, really complicated. It includes discussions of Fermat's principle and diagrams of light being refracted. And one of the great things that the film does is it takes that short story, takes all the central themes and expands it into something which is genuinely cinematic and very emotionally engaging. But while I was watching the film, it also reminded me a lot of the work of Kurt Vonnegut, who's an author I admire enormously. There are several key themes that turn up in Arrival that are very much Vonnegut's terrain. Specifically, if you're familiar with a book like Slaughterhouse-Five and Billy Pilgrim coming unstuck in time, you'll know what I'm talking about. The weird thing about Vonnegut is that his work is very hard to transfer to the screen. There have been some adaptations of his novel. Slaughterhouse-Five itself was adapted in 1972, and it, critical plaudits, won some awards, but wasn't a huge hit, and really struggled to capture the book. Then in the 1990s, Alan Rudolph had a bash at Breakfast of Champions, a novel I absolutely love. And the film starred people like Bruce Willis, so it had apparently mainstream appeal, but pretty much went under the wire. Very few people remember that film now. Oddly enough, while I was watching Arrival and thinking about Vonnegut, another film came into my head, which I'd kind of forgotten about, but which I really like, which is Mother Night, directed by Keith Gordon, starring Nick Nolte, and adapted from the novel of the same name by Kurt Vonnegut. As with so much of Vonnegut's stuff, it's concerned with World War II and memory and guilt and our perceptions of the world. But the best thing about the film is it manages to capture the spirit of Vonnegut. It is actually like reading a Vonnegut book, watching that film. In fact, Vonnegut himself gave the film his blessing by making a cameo appearance in it. There's a very fleeting glimpse of him as this sad figure standing in a street. It's a really terrific movie, but not often spoken about. If you get a chance, do try and track it down, because for me, it's the film that most perfectly captures the spirit of Vonnegut. Except, that is, for Arrival.
Now that's a proper introduction.